I came across Jamie on social media, building in secret in public.
Launch is about noise, really. And we sort of sat around going, we can't really talk about what we've built, who the co-founders are, or anything else.
Do you see AI as your friend?
Everyone is highly AI curious, but also fairly terrified.
By Ritchie, if you're watching, yeah, you need to check it out. What happens next?
It's a good question.
I am genuinely excited about this one. My guest today is Jamie Vaughan, co-founder of Restless, the AI marketing company for a social world. And the reason I'm excited is simple. Jamie is doing exactly what I'm trying to do, and he's doing it better than almost anyone I've seen. He's a proper marketing operator. He grew 303 London to 30 people and 7 figures before exiting. He built Signify UK from 0 to a 7-figure agency in 2 years. This guy knows how to build. But here's what got me. I came across Jamie on social media. It was on one post. He was building in secret in public. And I'll be straight with you, it annoyed me slightly. I had to follow him, I had to know what he was doing. And it was one post that created that. And that's exactly the kind of thing we're going to get into today. I am my own audience for this podcast. I'm a founder trying to figure out how to build visibly, how to use AI properly in my business, and how to actually market what I'm doing without it feeling forced or fake. Jamie is living proof that you can do all three at once. They launched Restless last week, so this conversation is about as fresh as it gets. We're going to get into what building in public actually is, why building in secret in public might be the smartest thing he did, what the launch looked like and why they went completely off piece with it. And then we're going to dig into Restless itself and what an AI is actually doing inside a marketing business right now. I've got an hour with him. I'm going to make every minute count. I think you want to stay tuned for all of it. Jamie, welcome to Made in Public.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, and I'm grateful because, as I said, you've launched last week, so I'm sure you are busy because of all the traction that you've created on social media with this building in secret in public strategy. For somebody who doesn't know, do you want to explain what building in public means to you?
Yeah, I can give my spin on it for sure. I had seen lots of, mates and people that subsequently became mates on LinkedIn in the main, sort of doing the thing of building a company and posting about it very publicly, being very transparent about numbers, the trials and tribulations that come with starting a business, which I was all too familiar with as well. And it was kind of very relatable content and very engaging to sort of follow the journey. Use a fairly lazy comparison of reality TV, but it kind of feels like that on a sort of more corporate or LinkedIn level. So I think it's basically just the public documentation of you going from inception to hopefully a successful business over time.
And I think that's what got me. That's why we are sat in this room. It was a matter of a couple of weeks ago when I saw one of your posts, building in secret in public. I had no idea that you had a marketing background. Had no idea you were founding an AI first marketing business. For me, that's a double whammy of excitement because I'm really keen to get into that. But from a psychology perspective, I was like, I need to know what this is. I was slightly annoyed. I was like, it's frustrating, but that's, I suppose, the psychology of people leaning into it. Why did you do it that way? Why did you do it in secret?
Well, there were a couple of just hard and fast reasons that we couldn't launch. So there was some of my co-founders had some notice periods and gardening leave and all sorts of stuff. So there was a few just we can't launch yet reasons. But I think we saw it as a bit of an opportunity. I'd never launched anything with much of a run up. It had just been here it is. So I think in the sense of how I would market a business, traditionally you'd want a bit of a run up before you start just saying to everyone what it is and doing a bit of teasing. So I think the purpose was principally to create some intrigue, hopefully create a bit of FOMO, and that was kind of the purpose. And we were sort of sat around going we can't really talk about what we've built, who the co-founders are or anything else, but I was sort of out of my gardening period and sat down with a guy I've worked with for a long time, but my pal Ian, who we affectionately call LinkedIn, who's a kind of personal brand guy I've worked with for a while. And we were like, well, why don't we do a vlog where, I can't even say the word, substantively, whatever. There wasn't anything material happening.
Yes.
But we were, I guess, spitballing and I think a reflection I'd had on the previous two businesses, I hadn't really actually documented much. So there was a bit of an aspiration to do that. But yeah, the sort of double whammy of it, I suppose, was that we could then start creating some intrigue, and some of the conversations that came off these videos, which I didn't really actually expect was going to result in much, were really meaningful.
So you guys were running around London with a camera. If people haven't seen the content, you should go back and look at this journey that Jamie and his team have done. But yeah, just really leaning into the fact that you can't talk about what it is that you're building, but you've got something coming.
Yeah.
Over the coffee that we've just shared, talking about what's going on at the moment, you've got some really interesting, very real, opportunities on the back of that. Does any of that happen, do you think, if you hadn't had that social strategy?
Definitely not. I mean, a few very loyal clients have sort of followed me around throughout my career, which is epic, and they're the sort of deepest relationships I have. But there was just the amount of people that come out of the woodwork when you start posting is more than I think people ever assume it would be. So there is, there were paying clients immediately for launch day, which kind of takes a lot of the pressure off launch. And there was also, off the actual launch video that we've launched with on whatever that was, Thursday of last week. We've got some conversations that I honestly didn't think we'd be having this year. Thought it would be much smaller scale businesses with smaller scale contracts.
We won't name drop, but these are some big brands, I'm sure big opportunities. And
I think a lot of them are what we would have had on our dream client list, including a couple that have already started working with us. But I suppose launch is about noise, really, and I think trying to generate, as I said earlier, some intrigue. That was the sort of primary purpose. But if a launch actually successfully results in you having some meetings and opportunities to affect change in businesses that you really look up to and admire, that was a very fun outcome, basically.
So this is all obviously very, very new for you, the launch, etc. Looking back over how you launched with the Guy Ritchie inspired launch video, talk us through that. How does that idea come to existence, and would you do it again?
I would definitely do it again. I mean, don't get in touch if it's a legal claim, please. Pop it in my pigeonhole, wherever that might be. No, I mean, I think, so it's neither mine or any of my co-founders' first business. And I think we obviously want to build something that's massively successful, but we also wanted to have a laugh whilst we were doing it. And I think, a fairly personality-less, humorless launch video would have just gone into the abyss and landed on no one's ears. And I think we just wanted to have a bit of a laugh with it, and be a bit self-deprecating and what have you, because it's again, I think a big part of our sell is that we've built stuff before, and so I don't want to be someone going look at us, we've built stuff before. So there was a sort of self-deprecating element to it, but we just wanted to have a bit of a laugh, honestly. I think B2B marketing is in this very odd moment where there's lots of people now that are doing full-blown comedy to market B2B brands, and I think that obviously just cuts through because the rest of it is so forgettable.
Well, I thought what was interesting with yours is that whilst it was comedic, the story that you were telling about AI and the challenge that presents was actually on the money, wasn't it? Because you were saying what you need is an agency, and if you haven't watched the video, it's the guys being introduced in this gang heist kind of theme. So that you've got the architect and the basically talking people through what you actually need now in this world of AI as a marketing business. So I think that leads us on really, really nicely for you to talk about Restless. I'm really, really interested to sort of understand a marketing business with the background of the founders that you guys have got and the experience that you've got building a marketing business right now in 2026 from the ground up with AI. Let's get into that. I really want to know everything, really. What is it?
Well, as you said in the intro, we're calling it an AI marketing company. And I guess to all intents and purposes, it's kind of a two-sided business. One is a proprietary piece of technology, which is effectively a managed SaaS proposition, and the other side isn't for agency services, which would be otherwise identified really as a social agency. I think if we'd gone back 12 months, the last thing that we would have collectively said that you would have needed in this world is another agency, because there's no shortage of them. But the four of us kind of came together, I guess, kind of midway through last year, as AI was really starting to pick up pace and starting to look like it was going to do what it has. And we basically all thought that, and Nat, my co-founder, who's got a far bigger brain than I, said something along the lines of, there is genuine last mover advantage, which I think everyone will be very familiar with first mover. But we basically saw that inherently it's challenging to implement something as massive and seismic as AI within a company of 50, 100, 200, however many people, because the change management is just very hard to justify. There's obviously churn, there's like people's jobs, there's a lot of stuff there. The legacy is kind of counterproductive.
Well, there's also as well the day job that's getting done for those those businesses where they think, I probably should adopt, I probably should shift, but phone's rung, this has happened.
Exactly. And a client's needing attention, whatever, there's all those things. So the last mover advantage basically centered around the fact that, like, we saw a very specific problem that we sort of consider a universal truth, which is that brands in general do not know as much as they should know about their current audience, and they don't know enough for sure about their future audience or how to most effectively get in front of them in the most cost effective way. And so that is what Antenna, the platform, does. It's a huge data ingest exercise where proprietary public and third party data is ingested. And the thing that AI is incredible and far greater than any individual human, but even the most very smart teams of humans, is this data ingest, analysis, pattern matching, and then insight surfacing. And so that is the sort of first port of call with Antenna. So that's like what onboarding looks like.
If you're a brand, do you then have to sort of implement that SaaS product with them? Or are you just saying, okay, what's your product? We can then go and find the audience. Or are they saying this is exactly who we need it for? Or is it some sort of blend of those two things?
The second, we call it, it's a bit technical, audience sign-ups, basically segmenting your audience. But I mean, every brand pretty much worth their salt will have personas. And that's like a phrase everyone's very familiar with. Personas are normally generated by a few smart people sat in a room, and it will normally be Sophie from Clapham and Rich from Chiswick or whatever. There will be these sort of like quite specific, like just people that they sort of imagine to be their customers, and they might look like customers they know they have. But what they're not is data driven or objective, and they're certainly not supplemented with like the voice of the customer, overall sentiment, what competitors are doing, etc. So what Antenna does is break it into like objective data driven micro personas, and you can see demographically, psychographically what they look like. You can see their key pain points, their objections, all this sort of stuff. And Antenna also impersonates that audience member, so you can actually talk to it. You can test hooks, a new campaign idea, some email copy, whatever it might be, before you actually go live, and it will assess the efficacy of what that sort of individual piece of content would look like. And so it kind of works as a data analyst come creative strategist is kind of the aim. And off the back of it, we make much more personalized ads, organic content, whatever else it can, the use cases are numerous, but that at its core, and that's certainly what we've been tasked with predominantly, is to build adverts that prospect audience, either existing and like churned customers to come back, or finding new audience members for our customers.
So you could kind of go into a business with either direction first, as an agency first, and then use the SaaS product, or someone could come and take the SaaS product and then say, now we know all this information, actually what we can really do is a campaign that looks like this, can you help? Yeah,
for sure. So the model is that, and I think this is like a really interesting thing that came out in a lot of the conversations that came off the back of the Building in Secret in Public, was we were meeting with loads of CMOs and founders trying to get feedback and get a lay of the land. And I think that universal truth of struggling to understand current audience and future audience well enough was kind of the first thing. The second thing was that everyone is highly AI curious, but also fairly terrified and a little bit like, which way do we go here? And so just creating another piece of technology to solve a technology problem felt wrong, basically. So our reflection was that actually it should be managed and not a self-serve tool. So the current model is basically that everyone that works with us, sort of however deeply, will get access to Antenna. And we'll see how that sort of emerges over time. But I think we felt strongly that everyone basically wants some level of hand-holding from people that are further ahead than them to sort of help them enable it.
Someone they can trust, someone they might already know.
Totally, and not just pay another SaaS subscription, because everyone resents that.
Well, it's really interesting. This isn't my world, but as I understand it, there's a lot of agencies that are really struggling, existing agencies, because of the shift of AI, etc. And here we have Restless on day one, which has got interest from some brands that, you know, I'm sure all agencies would love to be talking to. Would you? What would be? I guess that, you know, we're coming back to this building in public conversation. My intention with this show is that there's people sat listening who are probably sat on an idea that's either in their thoughts, in a document. They've spoken to their mates down the pub about it. They really want to do it, but haven't yet freed it, let it out to the world. I mean, what's the piece of advice that you'd kind of give to that person?
I mean, I think the first thing I'd say is that that's quite a regular fear and situation to find yourself in. I was highly uncomfortable doing the content for the first several episodes. And even just putting yourself out there, like, I've had a sort of advisor who's turned into a great friend who's got a massive sort of personal brand, and, you know, he recants this great moment where his friends went from sort of mocking him about posting on LinkedIn to going, can you help me with my LinkedIn? And so that sort of lives somewhat front of mind. And I think, like, I've experienced that to one degree or another. There's a lot of people that go, like, why are you doing that? And then they start to see it evidence itself. So I think it's a normal situation. But I think in reality, people are generally lovely and helpful. And particularly, you know, on a platform like LinkedIn, there's people that you won't have spoken to for 10 years, and there's people that you haven't spoken to in just a few months, but it's easy to forget. And putting stuff out there brings you back up to the surface. And if they can help, they're actually very good at reaching out generally. And we've definitely experienced that sort of kindness of people being supportive of us, you know, rolling a dice, leaving some very, like, I guess, cushy and nice jobs that we all had to go and risk it to start a new company. And I think people generally are supportive of that. So I think lean into the good of people, and hopefully they will prove you right that they support. I
think you're really right about the mood changing around it, because I was at a 40th birthday party it's a joint 40th birthday party with friends from uni, so people I haven't seen for years. And a few of them said, which I wasn't expecting, so I've been keeping up with you on LinkedIn. And I think those conversations a couple of years ago, I was cringing, but I would have been cringing way more, because I'd be like, here it comes, here's the jibe or whatever. And more is just like, that's really interesting. It's quite good. But I'm sure there's other comments that they don't bring to my attention that are what is this guy talking about? Because it's been, my LinkedIn has been pretty here, there and everywhere over a period of years. But I think we're at that point now where nearly everybody understands that if you're trying to build something, if you're trying to achieve something, it's going to be a lot easier if you've got traction, if you've got distribution. And I guess that's the point. One of the questions I want to speak to you about, with your background as a marketeer, not just as a founder of a business in this space now, what's the alternative? Because from where I sit, if we're using the excuses that are valid and the fears that are valid, which are, I'm scared about grabbing this camera, or I'm writing this post, or I'm too busy to do those things because I've got to do this and I've got to do that. It seems to me that the alternative really then is launching into silence.
Which is far more cringeworthy than even the most cringe of posts that you can muster up. A friend's company, he's like in the realm of personal brand, and he's got, I think their strapline is something like live life on easy mode, but in a sort of commercial sense. And clearly it's not easy, because the sort of process of building up to everything becoming easier is anything but. But as we were speaking about when we were having our coffee before this, like, most companies don't receive inbound inquiries, like, and even if they do, it's few and far between. They're poorly qualified and whatever else. And if someone follows you on a human level, understands your background, what you're currently working on, what your offer is, etc., they are self-qualifying and self-motivated to get in touch. The alternative for a lot of companies we work with is that they spend tons of money on advertising, or they have to explore other avenues, basically. And I think I'm lucky to work with brands that are very future facing, and they're conscious about personal brand as well as the overall brand, and they're across a bunch of different channels. But the alternative, particularly at launch, is that you're launching into the desert, which having run a web agency in the past, like, there was quite a lot of companies that spend all the time and money in the world, or certainly in their world, that they want to get this website to absolute optimal perfection, and then they'll launch, and then they won't necessarily have enough money to actually advertise anyone to get to it, or spend money on personal brand, or having a podcast, or whatever else that might drive the traffic. And something in the desert is just never going to succeed.
I think one of the things that you have done well with this building in secret and public strategy, and it's something that I'm kind of stealing from, not the secret part, but you've basically made a launch event have loads of events. So then two things happen. Obviously, there's more traction and more things to find, but it also feels less scary because it's not just one thing. You're going, oh my God, this is the launch event. If this doesn't work, then blah, blah, blah. You're going, well, like I've done with my podcast, I've just been like, I'm recording my first episode, so I'm getting ready for my first episode. So I've just looking at the edit for the first episode. These things that are all kind of launchy. That sounds like it could be raunchy, but I mean...
Hey, our launch is pretty raunchy.
It's not that kind of show, Jamie. But it feels like it... I think maybe leaning into building in public, actually, once you've started to do it, should then start to feel less scary.
Yeah, for sure. And you hedge fundamentally. Like, it's it's unlikely that everything's going to pop off.
Not unless for you. That's the thing.
Well, I mean, that's There were a few where I felt like I was in the desert.
They got deleted, did they? Those ones we didn't see.
No, they got trial reels. That's the key. You can test the waters.
This episode is sponsored by Vertical Drop, our end-to-end podcast agency based out of our studio in Clerkenwell, London. Founders, a podcast is the single best tool to grow your personal brand and business right now. Not just through content, but through access. We recruit your guests, those people who won't take your call. They'll sit down with you for a well-positioned show. We get you in the room with the people you actually want to do business with. Strategy, production, editing, long-form, social content, all handled. DM me on LinkedIn for a free pilot, no strings.
I mean, like the spin that we've put on ourselves is like we're predominantly working with consumer brands. If a prominent consumer brand is launching a new product, there is teaser campaign, there's a launch event, there's PR, there's influencer activation, there's a series of posts, there's then subsequent advertising post-launch, there's like a whole like sequence of things, and it reduces the probability that people aren't going to see it or aren't going to understand it or whatever. So I think we've basically taken that playbook and put it more on an agency, which is certainly a bit unorthodox. I'm not conscious of a bunch of other people that have done it in that way, and we've got a series of other videos coming out because the Guy Ritchie one was an
exclusive?
I mean, what I was about to say was certainly not an exclusive, it was amusing more than it was informative, let's say. I think that's the cynical take that people might be going, which actually we were fine with. I think like the aim was to at least entertain, hopefully inform, cause some intrigue, and then we're going to be a bit more on the nose about like what Restless is, why we've got this weird little ant as our mascot, and how ants represent AI, and so on and so forth. So there's a series of things, and we need, I'm a big believer in newness being the sort of most powerful fuel to put in the engine in terms of marketing something and staying fresh and whatever. The other big thing is to try and rebrand and reposition the vlog from being building in secret and public, because that's obviously not what we're doing anymore.
The new one,
So we're debating names there, but there's a series of things, and I would view it, as you sort of just described, as an opportunity to hedge across. And it's so often that the post that you think is going to do really well doesn't, and the one that you think I'm not sure about that one suddenly goes off. So
a case of kind of like letting the gloves go and just hit and send. Okay. I mean, I'm really interested to get your thoughts. Somebody that I'm very curious when it comes to AI. I've been messing around with multiple tools, probably spend either not enough time or way too much time. I can't quite figure out which it is that I'm doing at the moment.
Yep.
How do you see it? Obviously, you guys are, I assume, very up to speed with AI. How do you see the kind of the in-house teams adopting what's happening with AI? I guess that's, you guys, I'm sure, don't see that as a threat. I guess if people are kind of like wandering into that space, you're probably going, well, they're probably going to understand our offering more than
sure.
somebody else. But yeah, I guess you've had conversations about marketing agencies' place in the world of AI. How do you see it?
Well, yeah, I can come back to the in-house versus agency thing, because I think that is interesting. But again, I think like AI is so big, and like people are very good at making it sound very complex and intimidating and all powerful and all of these things. I think fundamentally you basically start with what's it good at and what's it not good at. For us in the sort of like creative realm, which I suppose we broadly exist in, it's incredible at the stuff that I described, like for what we're using with an antenna, which is this huge amount of data analysis, this pattern matching. Like you would have to employ quite a large team of very smart people to compete with that. It's also shockingly bad at being funny, having taste, being cool, whatever, sort of more human-led emotion that you're trying to convey. And so the balance we're striking, or trying to strike, that's obviously an ongoing battle, is making sure that we are combining the best of humans with the best of AI. That's kind of the mission there. In terms of the in-house thing, like, or in-house versus agency thing, I think the people we're actively trying to not have much to do with, unless they are suddenly spinning around, is people that are AI cynical, because clearly our proposition will just not land with them in any capacity. I think that population is shrinking, and I think it should be shrinking, but AI curious people, I'd say, is the sort of ideal scenario for us to speak to someone. I think most people in business, although there's always so many stats about how few people in the world are actually using Claude as an example, but which always slightly boggles the mind. But I think people are broadly AI curious at the moment, and so that curiosity is great for us, because I think I would be certainly ahead of the majority, but some of the people in our business are like so at the bleeding edge of like adopting the daily new thing and testing it and seeing if it's a runner, and if it's not, moving on and remembering why it wasn't and maybe coming back to it. But we're sort of there to be crash test dummies to some degree on that stuff, and on our own business, not necessarily on theirs.
So that's what I was going to ask, that next question really. Do you see, certainly with Vertical Drop, which we're building as a podcast agency, and my business Everlink, which is a recruitment business, I see AI as enhancing our workflows, enabling us to do more work, be more efficient, have better margins, maybe have better pricing, enabling us to do more work faster, rather than both the businesses are very small, we don't have big headcounts, but I don't see that as a detriment to headcount, because if I need more people, I will take them on. You know, do you see that as you grow Restless, is you've got this core team plus all of your ants? I'm sure that's probably in these various tunnels that they've been architected. Is that how you see it going? And then you add really capable people into that team that are probably already AI literate?
I guess our playbook for it when we started the business was, and like in transparency, agencies are traditionally a pain to scale, because they are so tied to the amount of people that you have, how productive those people are, etc. And that is an agency model. And so AI is the first thing ever really that can potentially offer disproportionate scale to headcount. And so that is a sizable opportunity, both commercially for us, but also for our clients, that they can work with fewer, higher quality people for the same rate that they would have, or even a lower rate, as you say, than they would have traditionally been able to have. So that is a sort of founding principle for why we started the business when we did. I think that is foundational. But yeah, I think what was the question? Sorry. If you see kind of
scaling. I suppose one of the questions, I'll come back to this. We'll get this bit again, because I think one of the things I'm interested to tap into in the show is around this kind of feeling of people being scared of AI and avoiding it. But I think if you're a marketeer working in an agency, if you avoid it, you probably take yourself out of the market completely.
Yeah.
Whereas, so I suppose my question, Jamie, is around, if you're kind of working in marketing at the moment, do you see AI as your friend? Do you think, well, I need to work with this technology so that businesses like Restless, as they scale and grow, I can add to that business because I understand AI, I understand the workflows, and I'm curious and I'm interested. Is that the way you'd kind of see it going?
Yeah, it is for sure. And we've deliberately hired quite senior at the start, and those senior people hopefully are very AI proficient and AI knowledgeable. Yeah. But at the very least, they're highly curious and ready to learn. Yeah. But I guess I sort of got into a slightly unorthodox career path quite early after I left university. So I ended up speaking to a lot of like friends' kids or family friends' kids or whatever around, the grad job market is a fairly grim state of affairs. Yeah. But we and my co-founder Jamie's other business, we are like scaling up those young roles of people that are more AI native, more social native, all of those things. So I think being a sort of fast and early adopter of the new tech is something that will of course give you some level of competitive edge in the job market. And it's the doom mongering that goes on again is something that we've tried to steer really far away from. Like, some of our language is obviously more intimidating than a traditional agency message would be. Our expectation is that we will scale through the technology as much as we'll scale through great people as well. But as I said at the outset, like the AI is still shockingly bad at enough of the things that humans are very good at to mean that they're both completely necessary. Yeah,
I'll pull back to that part, because you're saying about people are using humour to market B2B businesses, aren't they? Yeah. And often completely unrelated in any way to the service. So it's just a piece of comedy. It's so fascinating to see that. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think is there a point that's too far, or not too far, but irrelevant, and it's just making noise? Or do you think it's good publicity? Or was it there's no such thing as bad publicity?
I think that, well, I won't go for as sweeping of a statement as that. I mean, I'm someone, I guess, who's comfortable with trying to push and blur the lines. I mean, I put Bad Boy Chiller Crew on my vlog 2 weeks ago, which is probably the first time they've been on LinkedIn. But like, I think flirting with that line is better than going the other way, which I think if you speak to someone who's not posting on LinkedIn, who's just an employed person at a company, and you ask them, what do you think of LinkedIn? I think a lot of people would talk about AI slop and generic random nonsense that people are posting that almost certainly is written by AI. Yeah. The most obvious antidote to that is something that AI can't do, which is be funny. Yeah. And maybe AI can be funny. Someone will find a use case where that's not the case. But generally speaking, people are far better at building human connection with people. And so I think there are a few antidotes to it. Formats like this, I think, are a good antidote to it, because it's imperfect and I'll be stuttering here and there, and I'll forget the question that you just asked me a minute ago. AI won't do any of that, but that's also to some possibly like a more honest reflection of our days and our sleep deprivation and all those other good things. You've
got me onto a question that we hadn't talked about previously, but it's really relevant to the conversation you're saying there about with this kind of ever increasing amount of content, because it's never been easier for people to make content, and there'll be bots making content. What are your thoughts about live? Because I've been starting to talk to a couple of people here about the kind of the live shopping, the live streaming. I'm sure from your industry knowledge, what's your take on that? And what I don't want to do is scare people to go, we were talking about building in public, and now going, right, what you need to do is be a streamer. I don't think we need to start saying
levels.
that.
There's levels.
But what's your take on the whole kind of live thing and where that's going?
I mean, like, I think most brands should try it, like particularly e-commerce brands. There is a lot of opportunity in live. Live is just generally a pain to do. So again, I would encourage someone to hold your hand at least the first few times that you're trialing it. But I think generally in these moments where there's problems of slop-esque content, however you want to describe it. We just use the word slop all the time. But if there is an abundance of rubbish content, an easy remedy to that is doing something that is the live imperfect thing. It is in real life. It is looking to kind of historical safe havens of like digital out of home, or even just out of home, or whatever. Like if the platforms start getting clogged up with all this sort of stuff, and people will have felt that with LinkedIn, they'll have certainly felt that with X. Like very few of my clients still advertise on X or Twitter as was, because the quality of the content in there is like potentially brand damaging, and it's not where they want to be putting their brand name. But yeah, I think if we're talking about founders who are building stuff, live it's a commitment. Stuff can go wrong. You might want a bit more editorial license to give yourself comfort, particularly if you're just starting to put yourself out there a bit more.
Cool. And just to kind of to close us off today, I think before we started recording, you were saying how, I guess, shocked and encouraged you have been at the launch of Restless, and taken aback really at where you are was probably where you would have hoped to be, dreamed to be in a couple of years. What happens next?
It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, we are 4 or 5 days post launch, so I think we're still muddling through some of that. Like the launch is sort of 6 weeks long, effectively, from like a content planning perspective. But I think we want to continue documenting stuff in a public way, and the building in public thing is something that I see growing as opposed to going anywhere else. So I think we want to advocate for that and keep doing that. I think we're also going to be advocating for all of our people to find their own little realms, whether that's in newsletters or Substack is an amazing thing as well, in a very different content medium, which I think if you're a more introverted person that doesn't want to get mugshots all over LinkedIn,
ride a line bike while being recorded, all
of those things, with the San Andreas theme tune, if that's not like an area of comfort, I think do the thing that feels comfortable, but start doing something. I think it would be remiss, and basically in almost all industries, I think I've got a few lawyer mates and friends that work at hedge funds and stuff like that. Clearly they've got much tighter guardrails around it, but if you're in a forward-thinking company, the opportunity cost is basically zero in my view. So I think I'm gonna keep going down that path, and hopefully growing my own audience and Restless's to hopefully help and educate along the way, but also bring some really interesting brands into our agency to do some great work for them.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. I'm sure that people listening to that have been able to take some real tangible stuff, and if you haven't already, give Jamie and Restless a follow. The content is great, and it sounds as though what they're doing as a business is really, really exciting too. So
we hope so.
Congratulations, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. Cheers.